Have you ever attempted a Space A trip only to find yourself stranded at some passenger terminal? That sort of thing can happen any time of the year because we know Space A is a gamble. But right now, PCS season is in full swing. Competition for seats is very high and is resulting in some Cat 6 travelers being unable to make their connection, and in some cases, some travelers are finding themselves completely stranded. Today I'd like to talk about a specific example of an individual who was traveling with their kids who found themselves stranded at Yakota Air Base, Japan. And I wanted to discuss some of the decisions that they made that may have contributed to their being stranded and offer some suggestions about how you can avoid falling into that same trap. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that this intrepid stranded traveler chose to roll the dice and travel Space A during PCS season, and experienced Space A travelers will generally recommend that Cat 6 travelers avoid traveling during PCS season, which generally runs from May through mid-September annually. There are some other very difficult time frames as well, and I've outlined all of those on the video that I would refer to here. If you haven't seen that, it's about PCS season. I suggest that you check it out because it's very relevant to this conversation. So, this stranded traveler jumped onto one of the Space A Facebook groups and expressed that they were stuck in a real difficult bind, stuck for the past week at Yakota Air Base, Japan, with 3 kids that, although they had competed for 8 different flights, those flights were either completely filled or not taking passengers. They had checked the price of commercial flights from Japan to California, but the cost of tickets for their group was way too much. And Stranded Traveler was correct. For some reason, prices jumped very high during that time frame, probably because of the computer security issue that happened worldwide. However, we frequently caution people who are exploring Space A travel not to count on Space A if you can't afford a commercial flight to the same destination. Or at minimum, have a credit card with a significant available balance in case you get into just this sort of a jam. Now please understand, it's not my intention to bash this person who became stranded in this case, but the circumstances this stranded traveler described are a great example of what can happen when you roll the dice on Space A travel. So let's unpack the situation. From my outside perspective as an armchair quarterback, Stranded Traveler chose to attempt Space A during the busiest season of the year, PCS season. They were also traveling as a group of at least 4. And we know, because math, it's far more challenging for a group of 3 or more to be competitive and for all persons to secure seats on the same flight. That's because depending on how the competition goes within their category, there may be flights that have 3 available seats left, or maybe 2 available seats left, but there are a group of 4 or more, and you can't separate children from parents, so traveling in numbers automatically leaves you at a disadvantage mathematically. So, Stranded Traveler related that they had been stuck at Yakota for about a week. Folks from the Facebook group then took it upon themselves to review the roll call reports for that same time frame, where they observed that multiple flights actually left Yakota passenger terminal with empty seats during that same time frame. And they inquired of Stranded Traveler why they weren't on one of those flights. Stranded Traveler related that those flights were unscheduled, and that although she had called the passenger terminal in the morning every hour, Stranded Traveler gave up calling after lunchtime each day. It was at this point that things became a little clearer. Stranded Traveler and kids had competed for several flights unsuccessfully, but then departed the passenger terminal and retreated to a hotel. And here is the learning opportunity. Stranded Traveler missed several opportunities for flights that left with empty seats because they left the passenger terminal. Now, I understand the passenger terminal is not the most comfortable place all the time, but that's where the flights are. It's critically important for new Space A travelers to understand that what's posted to flight schedules online or in the passenger terminal itself or on the passenger terminal 24-hour flight recording may not accurately represent day-to-day what's happening. Things change in real time. Missions change and new flights and missions pop up. But if you're not around in the passenger terminal, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to compete for one of those flights. If you've retreated to a hotel, or if you're going to stretch your legs with a nice walk downtown, or go to a park, or visit the zoo, or anywhere other than that passenger terminal, then you may, in fact, be responsible for your own stranded circumstances. There are multiple lessons to be learned here in this particular scenario. Lesson number 1, PCS season is no joke. It can be a very, very difficult time to travel. Lesson number 2, traveling as a group is sometimes unavoidable, but it puts you at a big disadvantage, and that disadvantage is only multiplied during PCS season. Lesson number 3, if you have limited options or finances, then you need to remain at the passenger terminal because you cannot catch unforecasted flights from your hotel room. That sounds kind of snarky, right? But it's true. Lesson number 4, flying military Space A can be uncomfortable, particularly for families with small children. I recognize an extended stay in a passenger terminal with small children is a real challenge, but unless you're going to fly commercially, that is the only location you're going to catch an outbound flight. Lesson 5, Space A travelers must be situationally aware and communicating with passenger terminal staff. Finding out about flights that you missed after the fact is just not a circumstance that you want to be in. If you're physically in the passenger terminal, you can have a cordial interaction with passenger terminal staff and have a clear picture of what's happening with available flights. It's also helpful for them to know what your circumstances are, and if possible, they'll help you. I hope that you found this information to be helpful as you plan your next Space A adventure. Space A can be an incredible experience, but it is always an adventure. But we have to make good decisions and pay careful and close attention to what's happening around us when we travel. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the passenger terminal, hopefully not stranded. Thanks.